Hello, 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 hello. Hope everyone's doing well today. This is Willie with from Save to Sane, and I want to welcome you to our broadcast. We do this every other week. Um, yeah, we do this every other week, and so we're glad to have you all here with us today. I have a very interesting topic. Hopefully, it's interesting to all of you out there. So I'd like to say hello again to all of you. Those of you who are live, please send me a message. Let me know that you're here with any comments or questions that you may have during the show. Those of you who will hear this on the playback or listen to this at another time, I certainly appreciate all of you for being here and being a part of this program. So thank you so much. As I get started, as always, let me start the way I always start, which is by saying thank you to a couple of people. First, Taisha Essick, and hopefully you are out there somewhere, Taisha, listening. If not, then I know that you are taking care of your business and doing the things that you need to do. But thank you to Taisha for helping us to get this program going. A few years ago, it's been several years now, and she is certainly partly responsible for helping us to get to where we are today. So I always want to say thank you to her. And I want to encourage those of you who have not subscribed or not supporting any of her channels to please do so. She has a plethora of information and a plethora of things that she talk about, including religion in this space. That's sort of how we met. So certainly thank you to you again, Taisha, and I encourage all of you to support her channels. Secondly, I'd like to say thank you to my wife, as always. As she said, my biggest fan, but she's certainly my biggest supporter. She's behind the scenes handling all the technical stuff that I am not good at. I'm good at talking, but a lot of the technical stuff I am not that well versed in, and so she helps me with that. Plus, I run some of the ideas by her, and she gives me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on some of those. So, again, certainly appreciate her. And so today, what's the topic today? Let me see. Where are we? I wanted to speak about certainly why does the black church ignore white supremacy? But let me begin by sort of giving you sort of an update. The first thing I need to do is make sure that you guys stay aware of my book, my first book in this space. It's my third or fourth book overall, but it's my first book in this space. From Saved to Sane, my journey away from Christianity and why Christianity has been detrimental to the African American community. Willie O. Cartwright, you can find this on Amazon. It is a good book. It is not an academic level book, or at least what I would right now. Haven't earned a master's degree in religious studies, but it is a book that talks about my journey. And there's some interesting tidbits about why I believe Christianity is dangerous to the African American community. So it's my first offering in this space. A great book, really easy to read. And I said thank you to all of you who have gotten the book. And I encourage those of you who have not to please do so. Um, Also, a couple of things, just a couple of updates. I might have said this the last time we met, but I have been appointed to the board for the Secular Student Alliance. It is an organization that is supportive of secular organizations at universities and colleges across the country. So I'm very proud of that. Going through an orientation period right now. We'll be at their will be speaking or doing some kind of event at their annual conference in July. I think it's in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I look forward to that as well. A couple of other recent endeavors or things that came up. I just completed a class for the American Humanist Association on the dangers of Christian nationalism to our democracy. That class went extremely well. Hopefully, I get invited back to do some other sessions, but this was a 3-day session, a paid session that went really well. So, any one of you out there who may be listening, part of an organization, and want me to come by, be a paid speaker at your event to talk about that subject or any other related subjects, I'm certainly in the business of doing that. So, that went extremely well. And then finally, I've had conversations with, and this is going to be interesting, with the BJC, which stands for the Baptist. Um, it's a religious Christian organization, Baptist, and it slips my mind what the BJC stands for. But more importantly, they have an offshoot organization, a grassroots organization called Christians Against Christian Nationalism. And I've spoken to someone from that organization about speaking to their organization or doing some work with that organization. Now, this is not necessarily a change, but as you progress, and those of you who've gone through the deconversion process, deconverting, um, leaving religion, organized religion, and becoming whatever you find yourself in the space of. And there are a variety of names for it. I consider myself a secular humanist. But those of us who are in the secular space that have come from the religious space, for most of us, there are phases and steps that we go through. And I talk about this, and I have talked about this before. There's always the whole angry stage where you're angry because you feel like that you've been lied to. And I think after that, it's sort of I want to let everybody know everything that I know and let them know that they're wrong. Then I think you begin to sort of mellow out. And then at that point, either this becomes your life's work, or you just sort of fade into the background. And the subject of you being secular is probably the best encapsulating word for it. The fact that you are secular really never comes up unless someone engages you in that conversation. But for me, this is part of my life's work. And in doing so, I've sort of, I guess, for lack of a better word, maybe mellowed out a little bit. Um, but what I have seen recently is an uptick and what many of you have also seen is an uptick in Christian nationalism, which basically is another name for white supremacy. And so I came across this organization. I had put out a sort of clarion call to my religious friends and said, listen, we have these debates and these arguments all the time, this dialogue. Um, but I am challenging you, and I put out a challenge to all of them. Let's work together because I believe that you believe that Christian nationalism is a threat not only to us as secularists, but to you as people who are quote unquote the true Christians or real Christians. The Christian nationalist presents a very unfavoring view positioning in the Christian church, in the Christian faith. And I know many Christians who say that Christian nationalists are not necessarily Christians, but they lead with that name being Christian. And so it is to both of our advantage that we sort of attack this thing together. And so, with that being said, I reached out to some people. I got feedback from one person who said, "Yeah, but I don't think I can do anything worthwhile." But to the credit of this organization, they reached back out to me and said, "I think we may have some synergy here. Understand that we are at different ends of the spectrum when it comes to religious beliefs, but we do have a common enemy in Christian nationalists, Christian nationalism." And so we've had a conversation about doing some work together. So hopefully that pans out, and we get a chance, opportunity to do some work together. And so I am not at all opposed to people worshiping or being Christians or being part of their religion, part of being their faith. What I am opposed to are people who are um, pushing their religion on the rest of us, those of us who are not part of the faith, and those Christians or other people of faith who are creating laws that we all must live by, even though we're not part of their faith. So yeah, so that's where we are on that. Again, I encourage all of you who are on here live to please reach out to me. Let me know that you were here. Any comments or questions, please have those. And I need to check. Usually there are more people on than this live. And last week I think we experienced the same thing. So I need to get some comments and find out what's going on if there is an issue. But yeah, I'm glad to have the ones who are here today. So and then finally, one little quick little tidbit. I am like one subscriber away from reaching a milestone that would allow, to a certain extent, for us to do some monetization. But also, it's just important to reach these milestones, seeing that the channel is continuously growing, and I certainly appreciate that. So those of you who are out there who have not subscribed or who know others who may be interested in this and who haven't subscribed to the channel, please have them subscribe to the channel. We do this in this space. Those of us in this space, we get feedback. Oftentimes, it's critics, people criticizing what we're doing, challenging what we're doing. But occasionally, we do get those individuals who say, um, I appreciate the channel. I appreciate the work that you're doing. You've helped me in this journey. And most recently, I got a comment like that on my channel from someone who said myself, and he mentioned some other people who are really big in the space as well, but had me in that group and said that he certainly appreciated the work that we were doing here and that the work that we were doing or are doing has helped him in his journey. So that makes it all worth it. And so we will continue with that. So today's topic: why does the Black church ignore white supremacy? It is certainly my belief that, generally speaking, collectively, this is what the Black church is doing. They are ignoring white supremacy. Now, I say that as the caveat to that is that obviously there are some churches, because I'm not privy to every Black church in the country, but certainly there are some churches, some Black churches who are not ignoring white supremacy and who are pushing back and fighting back against white supremacy. But I say this from a collective standpoint. Those of you who are old enough or who know the history of this country and our culture in this country, there was a time that the Black church was on the forefront of fighting white supremacy. In the middle of last century, obviously, with people like Dr. Martin Luther King, Ralph Abernathy, a younger version of the younger Jesse Jackson, John Lewis, and many, 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 many others. They were on the forefront of fighting white supremacy, especially in the Deep South. And so that has clearly changed. We don't see those people or those churches on the forefront of white supremacy. We see them, in my opinion, we see them picking and choosing their battles. And so the question is, why is it that it seems like the Black church is ignoring white supremacy? And so I have a host of subtopics here that I want to discuss, bring to your attention, and looking for any feedback that may be there. So let's begin by defining what I mean by the Black church. So what I mean by the Black church is clearly the churches that are in predominantly Black communities that act as the center of the community for for coming together socially, for supporting the community and supporting those people who look like us. I am not referring to those individuals who are African American but may attend large, predominantly white mega churches. These are predominantly when I speak about the Black church, I'm speaking about the collective of the Black churches who are ran by Black ministers, Black pastors, who are predominantly Black members in the church and are in the predominantly Black communities. And so that's what I mean when I say the Black church. But we know that the history of these churches, again, they have been on the forefront of fighting white supremacy. And we have, history books that tells us all of the stories and what the churches have done and did do. And so we are certainly, even me as a secular humanist now, certainly is appreciative of the efforts of those individuals from the Black church itself, and everything about the Black church culture that was advantageous or that served to be advantageous to our progress here in this country as African Americans. But we see a pulling back on that. And the question is, why is that? And so is the Black church, first of all, is the Black church still vibrant? Is it still an important, influential part of the Black community? And so I want to throw that out there. What is going on? What's going on, Amanda? Glad to have you. Glad to have you here. So what's going on with the Black church? Is it still as vibrant? I've talked on this program many times about the Pew Research studies and other research that shows that across the board, people are not going to church as much, even in the African American community, where we're not going to church as much as we used to. We're certainly not at the pace of some of the other people. Glad to have you here, Amanda. Thank you so much. We're not decreasing at the pace of some of the other demographics, but we are certainly decreasing. And so, is the Black church still vibrant in our community? Um, Amanda said, no, it is not. It is useless. And so that is what I believe, certainly, and that is what a lot of the data is saying. Now, before I get the people coming on and sending me comments saying that I still go to church, my church is still this, and my church is still that. We're talking collectively. We're talking what we're seeing projected out. Are there still many Black churches in the Black communities that are still there and are still vibrant? Absolutely. But when you look overall collectively, there are fewer Black people going to church. Certainly for those individuals who are the millennials and younger, Generation Z and younger, they're certainly going to church a lot less. One of the things that I posit in my writings is that religion, and in the case of church, it still may be there, but it is less relevant in the lives of many people. Now we are finding things to do besides go to church. And so I think the church is less vibrant and also absolutely holds less of an influence on our community than before. I'll give you another example. If you go back 60, 70 years, many of the people that African Americans looked up to, who we collectively said were our leaders, many of those came from the religious community, not just Christianity, but we had Malcolm X and those individuals that maybe came from other spiritual practices. But certainly, we had many of our leaders that came from the Black church, the Christian church, Dr. Martin Luther King, and many of the others. And we looked up to those individuals. If you think about it now, how many Black pastors that we look up to unbiased? I'm not saying those who are part of this person's church, but from a collective looking outside, how many of us who may not be part of that particular church, how many of us look at that particular pastor as someone that's a so-called leader in our community the way we did maybe 60 years ago? Being a former resident of Atlanta, I know for a fact that people like those pastors, and it's off the top of my head, but many of those pastors who are well known, but they're not looked at the same way as, say, maybe a Dr. King was, or Ralph Abernathy, or John Lewis, some of these other people that came out of the church were 60 or 70 years ago. I know that these people have somewhat of a cult following with those individuals who are members of their church, but I'm talking about outside of their church. How many of those people are looked upon favorably? You think about the John Grays of the world, and the Brian. I remember his first name. Brian of his church, and some of the others. Creflo Dollar, and some of the others. Even you go to Texas, you go out to Dallas, and Jake's, TD Jakes. A lot of these pastors who are pastors of mega churches, and you think with real great influence, have very unfavorable people have very unfavorable opinions of them outside of their particular church. And so again, the influence that these people have and the church in general is weighing in the African American community. And so part of that is because they're not fighting the same with the same fervor white supremacy as these individuals in their positions did 60, 70 years ago. So let me some of the comments. What is it? Evelina. Paula. I'm gonna call you Paula because I don't want to butcher your first name, so I apologize for that. Well, Paula, thank you so much for being here. Paula's comment is: white supremacy reigns because Lord Jesus is painted white with gay white hair. Um, let's get back to that. I'm gonna come back to that. Amanda said in 2025, the Black church harms more than it helps. Hashtag scam. LMA said, and glad to have you. Glad to have you, LMA. Unfortunately, I think most Black people are just tired of the church rather than the religion itself. That is certainly true to a certain extent. Absolutely. And then Paula said to LMA, tired of church because black pastors scream a lot, and white churches are used to feed your info to the I can't read the last word. Um, Fadi, Fadi. Glad to have you. I don't know if it's your first time, but I certainly appreciate it if it is. Thank you for being here. White supremacy equals Christianity equal racism. Jeremiah Camaro. Jeremiah Camaro, those of you who are not familiar with Jeremiah Camaro, thank you. Um, Jeremiah Camaro does a lot of documentaries. He and I have met and spoken before. A friend connected us, a great individual. I have been trying to reach out to him to maybe get him on this show. I quote him in my book. And so, absolutely. One of the things that I say as well is that white supremacy, Christianity, westernized Christianity is the religious arm of white supremacy, right? And so I want to go back up and something that Paulus said, white supremacy reigns because Lord Jesus is painted white with gay white hair. And so that's sort of a loaded statement, Paula. Let me begin with saying that absolutely, um, westernized Christianity has been used to support and push white supremacy. um, it is one of the first things that black children learn from an early age, even before we go to school, even before we're 5 or 6 years old. We've already been indoctrinated into the church, and up until recently, many of us was indoctrinated into a church that had a white Jesus or a white God as the symbol, along with white angels, and so we never saw ourselves in the religion or the faith that we practice. And so that subconsciously built in a inferiority complex with many of us. I'm not saying all of us. Some of us are astute enough and have the ability to discern the two. But for many of us, the indoctrination, it is a natural thing. When you begin by uh, 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 showing the things that are good, in this case, God, Jesus, angels, things that are good, things that are eternally good, not looking like you, looking just the opposite of you, as a matter of fact, being white, then you grow up with this unconscious and in some way, and sometimes conscious belief that you are inferior and that they or anything that is white is superior. This is factual. This is done all the way through slavery because the thought process behind this was that if you see your Savior as being white, if you see your God as being white, if you see your Jesus as being white, then it is less likely that you're going to harm white people in the case of the slave master. And so it is a tool that is used to push, continually to push white supremacy. And again, as now, our church and our community, in my opinion, is not doing enough to fight that. So that's that part of it. Um, Paula, the other part of it, I don't know if you're saying Lord Jesus is painted white with gay white hair as something that is objectively true, being the Jesus character, or not. I also believe that us as African Americans believing in this religion, what I call it, which is what I call a mythology, is also part of the problem. And so, what this does, this belief in this mythology, being Christianity, God, Jesus, all of it, um, it strips us of our accountability, our ability to be responsible and accountable to the things that happen to us. Everything that's good that happens to us, regardless of the amount of work and sacrifice that we personally make, we give credit to this mythological creature that we call God or Jesus. And anything that is bad or negative that happens to us, we give all the blame. We don't even give the blame to God. We give blame to his alter ego, its alter ego in this scam called Satan. And so it strips us of our ability to be accountable and responsible. And you get the whole let's pray about it, so forth and so on. And so, Paula, where in one sense I absolutely agree with you in the indoctrination of the white Jesus and all of that. I'm not really sure the gay white hair, what that has to really do with it. But I certainly disagree if you're saying that this Jesus character is objectively real. because I certainly don't believe that, and many on this program also when do not believe that. So we go on. What did I stop at? LMA said, unfortunately, I think most black people are just tired of the church rather than the religion itself. And I read that. Yeah, absolutely. There are what I've seen in my research is that black people who are now the largest growing demographic in what we call the non category, those who are religiously unaffiliated. What we've seen from an explicit standpoint is that the number of black atheists and agnostics have not grown when we explicitly ask them. Now, I believe that that's not altogether true, but let's just take those numbers. And so, what that says with the research is that, yeah, people are leaving church. To your point, people are just tired of church, but people are not necessarily leaving their belief in a higher power in God. Again, I would challenge that there is more people who are actually agnostic and atheist, black people, than they are willing to say. And that is for a whole host of reasons. And we talked about that. We have talked about that before. And I've experienced a lot of that myself. But again, that goes to your point. Yeah, I think there are certainly, even if my point is true that there are more agnostics and atheists in this non-category, it is still overwhelmingly full of individuals who are just like, I am tired of going to church. I am tired of the whole church circus, but I still believe in a higher power. And so I certainly agree with you there. Um, Paula said, LMA tired of church because black pastors scream a lot and white churches are used to feature information on the state. I still am not sure about that. So we've always had black pastors who have quote unquote screamed. I think the difference is I think there are a couple of things that are different. Now, number one is that the internet, so we can fact check these pastors on the spot, right? Where before in my generation and older and maybe a little bit younger, we solely relied on, especially as being younger people, we solely relied on what the pastor and those in clergy or those who we thought were biblically more astute than us. We certainly relied on what they told us, and we had no way of really fact checking them. So that's number one. I think the second part of that is that with the country becoming a lot more liberal, younger people are saying that these things that you name, you being the clergy people name that are an abomination, like the gay and lesbian lifestyle, like abortion, like some of the other things. Many of these young people are not falling for that. I mean, they have friends who are part of the LGBT community. They have friends who are trans. They themselves may be bi or part of the LGBT community, along with other cultural issues. And so those two things I think are two of the more important things that have led, in particular, young people away from the church. Um, and so yeah, so I would say that Fado white supremacy. We talked about that. Jeremiah Camaro. Um, Paula said, we wear wigs to have Jesus hair. Yeah, that is a whole, I don't know if that's Jesus hair per se, as it is more so of European and Eurocentric in that. And so there is some truth to that, but I don't think that I don't know any women who wear wigs to say my hair is more like Jesus. I think some of them, and keep in mind, what you may not know about me is that I was in this industry for about 16 years, my wife and I. So I'm somewhat versed on this. And so for some women, it is just the ability to change up their hairstyle. For some women, it is a way to protect the hair that they have. And then yet with some women, it is a desire to look more European. And so they have their right to do that. And so, but again, I've never heard anyone say I'm wearing a wig so I can look more like Jesus. I haven't. I'm not saying it's not out there, but I've never witnessed that. And then Fadi said the first black church started under white supervision. Yeah, absolutely. And if you go back to slavery, um, when they allowed the enslaved Africans to have churches on Sunday, there always had to be a white overseer there during the sermon to make sure that even the black pastor to make sure that he or she, or in this case he, was not saying the wrong thing. And so yeah, so we've always have had that. And so again, my point to this is that yes, going all the way back up to the first thing, the early indoctrination of our people into Christianity, especially westernized Christianity, is certainly one of the things that helps to sustain white supremacy. Because again, it creates in us, a lot of us, whether it's conscious or subconscious, directly or indirectly, a level of inferiority. Because everything that we see that is wonderful and great is white, beginning with God, beginning with Jesus. Then we go to school, and many of our teachers are white. We see authority figures, police officers, mostly white. We see judges who are mostly white, and so all of that stuff together creates what, especially if you're young and your mind is not yet developed and you are very impressionable. Unconsciously, you get this inferiority complex that many of us come away with. And that is a tool that is used by those Christian nationalists and white evangelicals and white supremacists to play upon that. Um, and so another thing that we talk about, even with this, even with that being said, I think about the large white mega churches where my experience in the South, where I lived for a while in Atlanta, there were a lot of black people who attended those churches, myself included. I have attended large black mega churches. I have attended small black churches. I have attended small white churches, and I've attended large white mega churches. All of the above. And what I have noticed first of all, church, as someone said many moons ago, is still the most segregated time of the week. Those 1 o'clock on Sundays is still one of the most segregated times in this country. And so many people still go to their individual churches. White people majority go to predominantly white churches, and the majority of black people still go to predominantly black churches. With that being said, many of the black people that I find in the predominantly white churches are resistant to pushing back on the far right wing things and the white supremacy stuff that we may hear that come from the pulpit by black pastors. They are reluctant. Some of them are reluctant to push back on it. When I say that, I'm talking about pastors, white pastors who openly endorse individuals who may be who are racist, bigoted, or who have bigoted and racist policies that they're pushing for. Or there are others, black people in this church who are not just resistant, but who are on the side of these individuals. And one of the reasons that some of them give, and this just turns my stomach when I hear this phrase, is that there are many black people in the church, religious black people, Christians in particular, who believe that they are Christian first and black second. And so again, this enables those white supremacy to use those individuals to help support and push white supremacy ideas. And so what do I mean by that? They're Christian first, and so they believe that everything that they do and see is through the prism of their religion. So they will support these bigoted figures if these people present that they are Christian first, right? That they are Christian, and they will support them because they're being told that things like the liberal agenda is not Christian, it's anti-Christian. Well, part of the liberal agenda might be the support of LGBTQ and trans and women having the right to choose. But also part of that liberal agenda is supporting and helping those who are less fortunate than you. And so those individuals, Black Christians and others, tend to forget that part of it. And so it becomes dangerous when these individuals fall right into this "I am Christian first," and we all are the same in the eyesight of God. I have personal friends who do this, who are part of majority white congregations. I have a friend who is, she may be the only Black person in this particular church. And there have been things that have been said and done to her and her kids, even being called the N word. And she still supported and still supports this church today, to this day. And so my wife and I have other friends who are African American, people of color who are part of large, predominantly white congregations. And in these congregations, these pastors openly support bigoted and racist individuals or bigoted and racist policies. I was very guilty of that myself. Full disclosure, I attended a mega church in the north of Atlanta with a very popular white pastor. Church was it was still majority white. It's funny because they had multiple locations, and my wife and I distinctly remember being in one location that was closer to Atlanta, the city, that had started to become majority black, or at least more people of color had started to come. And the pastor opened another branch that was further north, away from the city, and that's where he spent his time and did the sermons from. And that branch obviously was mostly white, and so we sort of noticed that and said, "Wow." But as we did our deconstruction and left, that was not the last church that we attended. It was next to the last church that we attended. But yeah, so we were guilty of that as well, but it was not without being conscious of things that was going on. Part of the reason why we left is because we did notice these things that was going on. And so yeah, a couple of comments. Paula said, "When I was a kid, I didn't like watching black movies, and I am black." Again, all of that is it is a vicious cycle that is well more advanced than what we give it credit for. It is there's a lot of writings out there about how this thing is systematic, and it plays in every aspect of our lives. It is not by coincidence that these things are done. It is not by coincidence that we see these things. If you don't see yourself represented in things that you want or things that you view to be positive, then you will begin to think that there is something wrong with you, or that you are inherently bad, evil, wrong, or unworthy. We've seen this in research studies. We've seen this in simple studies. Those of you who may be familiar with the doll test, uh, there was an older version, but there is also a more recent version of the same test. And how this test works is um, the person who's conducting the test will lay out dolls of different shades, black, I mean, really dark, maybe brown, maybe biracial looking, white, so forth and so on, right? And they're asked a child, black kids, white kids, Hispanic age, whatever kids, what's the good doll? Which would be the good doll? And almost all of them, including the black child, would point to the white doll. Who would be the bad doll? And again, almost all of them, including the black kids, the black children, will point to the black doll. And so that is something that is instilled in us from the beginning, whether it's conscious, unconscious, biased, direct or indirect. And it begins. Trust me when I say this. It begins at the earliest of age. Is when we're taking our children to church, or we're exposing them to Christianity that is highlighted by their God or their Jesus being white. Um, I had somebody mentioned this before. I was maybe on this program. I was on another program. We talked about it. We said, how many times have you ever seen a black angel? Look in the books, look at stores, look in the movies. Almost all the time you see white angels, and so it is understandable, sad but understandable, how some children can grow up with an inferiority complex to anything that looks like them. And then you add to that the things that happen social economic wise in a lot of predominantly black communities. I grew up in one. I grew up in public housing, and so everything that we saw, for the most part, it was a lot of negativity. Whether it was the violence, whether it was the lack of education, whether it was low test scores, alcoholism, whatever it was, we saw an abundance of it in our community, right? And if you grew up in a community that was predominantly black, then that's all that you saw. But then you turn the television on, or you read books, or you listen to someone on television, and it seems to you that those individuals who don't look like you are enjoying a much better quality of life, unbeknown to you that they still have their problems and their issues. There is alcoholism, and there's abuse, and there is ignorance, and there's low test scores, and there is violence in those communities too. But the propaganda of this country has been to highlight the goodness and the greatness of those communities, and highlight the negativities of our community. Again, all of this stuff is connected. But I'm a firm believer. One of the reasons why I do this is because I am a firm believer that Christianity is, again, the religious arm of white supremacy. And it gets us in a hole, and it is the most difficult thing for us to walk away from. I told my students at Georgia State that one of the reasons why I do this, teach the subject, is if I can challenge you to challenge your thoughts about religion, which is the one thing that we don't ask for receipts for. We believe religion, most of us do, without having any kind of proof or verification. There is nothing else in this world that we will take on face value without having proof and receipts for, except religion. And so, if we can teach people, individuals, to ask questions about their faith, ask questions about their religion, then this will dwindle down to them being able to question everything else in their life. But it has to begin with what I consider to be the most difficult thing for us to question and ask questions about, and that is our faith. Paul said, I remember nice songs. Let me go back up as one comment before that. LMA said, I think the black church has to ignore the WS, I guess that's white supremacy in the white church, because whatever criticism directed toward the white church, a portion of that criticism was spilled back on the black church. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so you're absolutely right. But I think that in challenging the white supremacy and white churches, you're also doing that to yourself, to us collectively, and that needs to be done. These questions need to be answered. Those challenges need to be addressed in order for us to move forward. Um, Paula again said, I remember nice songs my mother choir sang. It says, "Make me white as snow." Yeah, all of that. Again, it's part of the programming. It is not a coincidence that we have these words and these things in the song. It is not a coincidence that in the Bible or movies or songs or whatever, God or Jesus is always depicted as light, white, brightness, the light that everybody sees. Anything that is the devil or demonic or opposite of that, antithetical to God or Jesus, is pictured as dark, in the dark. And so, yeah, we see that again. We know historically that white supremacists have used the Bible and the story of Ham to justify enslavement. We know that they've said that our skin color was a curse from God, and yet we still worship this God and part of this religion. And so finally, Fadi said, if the new Pope Godfather is African, do you think he would be good for Africa and the black community, or another slave trader? That's a great question. First of all, I don't think he will be black. I've looked at the candidates, and I know there was one black candidate or African candidate. I think there are supposed to be two, but out of the top 10 that I've seen, I've only seen one that is African. I just don't think that will happen. I think that, again, every system throughout the world, there is a level or a degree of racism within it. And I think that the Catholic Church is no different. Um, and it's just a matter of what level of degrees. And you say he's from Ghana, absolutely. The second part of your question is, if this was by some freak of nature, this was to happen. Um, Me personally, I don't think that it would help Africa. Because I am vehemently opposed to. I am opposed to any type of organized religion. Not only Christianity, but I mean Catholicism, which is part of Christianity. But I'm opposed to all Christianity. I think that uh, Christianity, Protestant. Let me say Protestant and Catholicism and Islam has robbed the African continent of its original spiritual practices. And I think that is sad and that is horrible. And so, no, I am completely opposed to. I don't think it would help. I think, as a matter of fact, I think it would. I think it would hurt. I think it would. I think it would make more Africans more fervent in their religious belief, in their Catholicism, even in their Christianity. And I think that is dangerous. And I think that is wrong. Um, I hate that Africans have, for the most part, left their indigenous practices. And again, for those of you who may be listening, who might pick up on this, Christianity is not indigenous to Africa, not at all. It is not an original African practice, and so I hate when people say that. You don't know your history. Christianity was started in Judea, which is in some maps maybe northeast Africa, but it was started. Judea at the time was a controlling province of Rome, and it was started by the Romans, and then it went back to Rome, and then eventually made its way to two North African countries by the third or fourth century. But understand, Christians, Africans who are the cradle of civilization, who existed thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years before this religion existed and had their own spiritual practices. That was not Christianity. There are things that Christianity may have borrowed and did borrow from some African practices, but also some much older practices as well. But again, Christianity is not indigenous to the African continent. It is the Bible is not about black people at all. We are not the original Jews. All of that stuff is rubbish. And so, yeah, Paula said, correct, sir. And Paula said, Christianity is foreign even to Ethiopian. Ethiopia and Egypt were the first two African countries to practice Christianity. But as you said, it was foreign to them as well. It was not indigenous to them either. So absolutely. Father said 100%. So yeah, and so we do that. And so again, what is the black church's responsibility in fighting white supremacy? I said now even more than ever, it is imperative that the black church is on the forefront of fighting white supremacy if it wants to be viewed as valid and authentic. Uh, Another reason why many of the young people are walking away from that is walking away from church is because of that reason as well, that they don't see the black church taking leadership role in fighting white supremacy. And so now we are, regardless of what you think about um, politics, we are in an era where, and even for those of you who may be supportive of the current administration, please understand this. Many of those who are advising the president, the current president, and the administration are absolutely open and devout members of white supremacy, white nationalism, all of that. If you look at Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation, that is a white supremacy organization dressed in a suit and tie. And so look at the policies and the things that are in Project 2025. So absolutely, we have to understand that. And so I said that to say that the black church, more so than any time in the last 60, 70 years, should be on the forefront of fighting these things. And for the most part, I don't see it. If you go back some years ago when Black Lives Matter was at the forefront, it was at the forefront, or I guess at the time it was probably the most prominent um, civil rights pseudo organization, and it was not led by black clergy. It was led by three women who were not your traditional uh, black Christians or from the traditional black Christian church. And so, outside of Al Sharpton, who that's a whole nother story, we don't see many from the black church that's on the forefront of fighting these things that are harmful to us as people of color. And so again, you see individuals, younger people, who are indeed running away from the church for that reason and some other reasons. So, couple other comments. Amanda, why were we so accepting of Christianity? That's a great question. Well, understand this. initially, what happened was, um, the Europeans were first the Arabs took advantage of tribal issues in Africa, right? Warring factions in Africa. Europeans will come in, Arabs and Europeans will come in and say, "We'll give you this for your imprisoned your prisoners." Africans treated their prisoners a lot better than the way the enslavers did. Absolutely. And so they took advantage of our hospitality, our natural desire to be opening and welcoming to people. They fed us the Bible and the the Quran and the Bible. We took that. We thought that it was a better deal. By the time Africans realized what was really going on, it was too late. When our ancestors got here to this country, they had no other choice but to practice Christianity and embrace Christianity, because if you did not, then that would be a death sentence. And so, over the years and over the generations, where it started off as okay, I'm going to embrace this so that I'm not killed, it became something that many of them sincerely embraced, because in some of the writings they saw some things that they thought would empower them, right? Um, and so this was just part of a full indoctrination. They were also stripped of their original faith system and their original belief system. And all these things were happening to them. The only thing that they had to hold on to, the only thing that our ancestors had to hold on to, was the idea of the thought that at some point things would be better due to a supernatural being. That is really all that they had to hold on to. And so I get upset. We just celebrated, or the country just celebrated Easter. I get upset when I see my people more enthusiastic about this mythological crucifixion and resurrection of this mythological person, and saying that this thing died for our sins, when without any kind of archaeological evidence or objective proof of that. But yet we can objectively, archaeologically, through DNA, traced back to our ancestors who literally died for our freedom. Our ancestors literally died believing that their grandkids and great grandkids and on down the line would someday be part of a country or society where they would be viewed as equal. They literally died for that. They literally died because of that. And we here today are survivors of those who believed that and who went through that. And so I see African Americans who are more torn up about the passion of the Christ and this made up story than they are about what really happened to their ancestors that you can literally trace. I tell people all the time, it is not that far removed. My mother picked cotton. My mother picked cotton in the state of Alabama. Um, my grandparents were part of a sharecroppers. They were sharecroppers, right? And so you can trace that back to the last slaves, so forth and so on. And so we're not that far removed from that. A couple other comments. Fadi said, Africa have civilizations, not religions. The Kush, the Papyro, Exo, and Bantu, all of these civilizations, not religious. Yeah, they absolutely had civilizations. They were much more civilized than other parts of the of the world. And notice I never said religions, I said spiritual practices. And so that is completely different than what we know today as a religion. Spiritual practices is that they have reverence for nature, understanding nature, and other things, but it was spiritual practices and not religion. So absolutely, thank you for that. Zombie God 242. Thank you for being here. I don't know if it's your first time, but if it is, welcome. Same thing to you, Fatty. I don't think this is your first time, but if it is, certainly thank you, and I appreciate that. Zombie said the black church are gatekeepers for the white supremacy to keep blacks in check, keep black sheeple. I 100% agree. In most cases, I think that is absolutely what Christianity does to us in particular. It makes us docile. To your point, Zombie, it makes us docile. It keeps us from fighting back. It tells us either what would Jesus do? You would turn the other cheek, or from a subconscious standpoint, we subconsciously revere whiteness, European culture and Europeans, the descendants of Europeans. Uh, we subconsciously revere them. And so now it's created in us collectively a state of being docile, where many of us, especially our older people, are afraid to push back or don't want to push back. I don't think that is our position, or we leave it up to God and Jesus. We're going to pray about it. So yeah, so absolutely, it is absolutely. And I think many of these we've learned throughout history that many of these leaders of these churches have been pawns. They have been put there to do exactly what you said, Zombie. They've been paid to do that, to keep us in check and keep us in line while they receive the benefits, resources, money from the system. And so, yeah, so they are just as guilty as those people who are directly involved in white supremacy. Um, Fox, glad to have you. Hope everything is well. The black church is a tool of white supremacy, so of course, white supremacy isn't going to fight itself. Absolutely, absolutely, it's going to continue to be a tool for its own advancement at the demise of us. And I really believe, and this is just not me being on a soapbox about my disdain for organized religion, but it is important that I don't think that we're going to make a wholesale change in this until we make a wholesale change in the way that we practice religion or spirituality, or just leave it alone altogether. Because again, it has a hold on us. It keeps us from being warriors. It keeps us from fighting in every sense of the word. Um, and they know this. They being the ones that are part of white supremacy, they understand this. They know that as long as the vast majority of us consider ourselves to be Christians and consider ourselves to be real Christians, there is little we're going to do in collectively fighting back against white supremacy and fighting against them, because it is antithetical to what we believe we should be doing as Christians. It is antithetical. We believe that it is antithetical to what Jesus would be doing. And so that's where we are on that. Fox also said, I love these much needed reality checks that you are providing for our stubborn people, making it harder for them to live in a land of Christian make believe. You know, I'm trying to do my part, and then there's others. But quite honestly, if people would just open their eyes, it's doing it to itself. I mean, you're like recently, um, a part of Trump's administration, they are pushing to have federal workers making a policy that they have to acknowledge Christianity. There's this anti-Christian bias organization that they're putting together. So it is not about anti-Semitism or being anti-Christian. It is for the advancement of Christian ideas. And we understand when they say Christian, when this country says Christian ideas, it is Eurocentric Christian ideas. It is heterosexual white male being the head. It is everything else being behind. It is women who are subjugated to being housewives and having as many children as possible. It is about the subjugation of people of color, because for whatever reason, we're not viewed as equal to heterosexual white males. And clearly it is antithetical to the advancement of those in the LGBT community. It is against women having a right of choice. It is against science. If none of those categories hit you, then certainly you should be, it is against science. It is anti-science. It is pro-nationalism. That's where we get Christian nationalism from. It is about us trying to be a self-sustaining society where we're on a world market. And so it is dangerous to almost every aspect of our society, with the exception of white heterosexual males. And so people need to understand that. Amanda said it is sad and it is harmful. Absolutely. But also said the Bible is the biggest book of contradictions. It is full of contradictions, beginning with the very beginning, beginning with the creation story. There is two or three different creation stories. So it begins to contradict itself from the very, very beginning throughout, all the way until the end. But yet, many of our people, many Christians in general, are blinded, and would die on that hill, and would never read any of the contradictions or question it whatsoever. Uh, Fadi said the real racism is the lack of black atheism and black free thinkers. Absolutely. You know what? I agree. We need, and when I say free thinkers, I am not saying that people, especially African Americans who are religious, should become free thinkers and then all of a sudden become atheist or agnostic or secular in any way. But what I am saying is that they should be free thinkers. They should be free thought. There should be free thought. Like, they should read something other than the Bible. They should challenge things in the Bible that they read that don't make sense, as opposed to doing mental gymnastics to make it make sense. If you're reading a book and the book tells you that the entire world was flooded, all except two of each animal, including ones that were far, far away that could not have existed, including carnivores who main source of food was on the ship, and they did not partake of that for 40 days or whatever it was. That does not make common sense. At least have enough free thought to challenge those stories and those things, especially when there is no archaeological objective evidence that says that this happened. Same thing with the creation story. If we begin at the beginning, there is nothing in our science that says that the earth was created in 6 days by this all powerful supernatural being. There is absolutely nothing in science that says that, and it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. We don't have anything that says that a woman came from the rib of a man. That has never happened. It hasn't happened since. It never happened before. So why are these things that we take to be at face value as truth? I don't understand it. There's never been a woman born from a man, and especially taken from a man's rib. That has never happened. And so why do we believe that all of a sudden this happened? And so yeah, so those things. Um, Fox said, "Is Ku Klux Christianity?" That's a good one. I'm gonna have to steal that one. I'm gonna steal that one from you, Fox. And so we're gonna get ready to wrap up here. I'm gonna read these last comments. Paula said, "Many of the kids in church were made by the pastor, if you know what I mean." That is a whole nother subject, Paula, and we've talked about that here. And I can go on for days and days and days about the severity of that and what it does to those kids in our communities. And I think what is almost as bad is the length that people around in the community, including those kids' loved ones, will go to protect the people who are guilty of doing these things, the clergy members, the pastors, and the deacons, and those individuals. And so it is. This has been happening not only in our church but in other communities as well. But as a person who grew up in our community, obviously, I've seen it, and it is atrocious. And we have to do a whole nother show on that. Um, Amanda said, growing up, we were told that too much education outside of the Bible is demonic. That is one of those safety nets, one of those defensive, protective mechanisms that keeps you under their control. It keeps you ignorant. They design that. They tell you that if you seek knowledge, that you're somehow demonic. Remember, the original Adam and Eve in the sin was because they ate from the tree of good, the knowledge of good and evil. So for whatever reason, in religion, in particular Christianity, the same thing with Islam, ignorance. Intellect, intelligence, knowing stuff, information is somehow bad. And the reason why is because it's the more you know, the harder it is to control you. The more you know, the more intellectual you are, the more you read outside of the Bible or the Quran or whatever, the harder it is for people to control you. Amanda said, "Wow." Paula and Fada said, "When the church, the center of the community, said bye bye to the community." I think that is the case now. That was a time that was not necessarily the case, but the church also back then operated differently, um, and but there were still, it's still uh, uh, squashed those of us who were free thinkers. But in the trade off was the church did a lot more for the collective community, right? I am never for the squashing of free thought, but at least back then, the community collectively got more from the church than what it is getting now. That is by no means an excuse or rationale for squashing free thought. But again, at least the community got more. So yeah, with that being said, I want to thank all of you for coming in, for adding your comments. I certainly appreciate all of you. Those of you who are first time, thank you so much. Those of you who have not subscribed, please subscribe. I am close, one subscriber short of being at a well-deserved, well-earned designation. All of the subscribers are organic. I didn't buy any. I don't even know how that process works. But these are all individuals who've checked out the channel and want to be a part of it and have subscribed to it. We've been doing this for 2, maybe 3 years now. I think probably going on 3 years now. So I certainly appreciate it. And so the channel is still growing. We're doing a lot more things. So yeah, please subscribe. Hit the like button here. Share this with your friends. And again, I appreciate it. I'll read this last one and then we will be out of here and I will see you in 2 weeks. Amanda says, yeah, but it was under the guise of the civil rights movement, which was also a scam. That is a whole nother a topic that we can certainly tackle at some point. I think there were there's certainly both good and bad to the civil rights movement. And so I also think that for most of us back then, Amanda, it is all that we knew. It was I won't say it was the blind leading the blind, but it was us doing what we thought was right given the circumstances. And I think to a certain extent we were right. It is easy to look back and play Monday morning quarterback and pick out the negatives or the things that became a problem. Certainly, it resulted in some issues, family structure, and so forth and so on. But I am still a firm believer that giving everything that was going on and the information and what we had to work with at the time, I still think that it was something that was right to do at the time. Again, does not absolve it of the issues that came out of it. But I do think that given everything, that it was the right thing that we were doing at the time. But it don't mean that I'm right. And I'm absolutely open to having this dialogue and this debate about it as well. But I think that everyone can say, at least I will hope that everyone can say that there was some good, even for those who believe that it was mostly bad. I think that people can say there was some good that came out of it. And those of us who say that it was good can also acknowledge that there was some bad that came out of it as well. So yeah, absolutely. But I think all of you, this has been awesome. I will see you in 2 weeks. Stay safe. And again, I will see you in 2 weeks. And thank you so much.